you. A big welcome to everyone that is here. I got a presentation and I'm hope because there's a lot that I want to say, and I'm using the presentation as a means to offload some of the things that I won't be able to squeeze into 20 minutes. I do hope to impart a lot of practical skills that you can apply into your business. And at any point, if you do need for clarity, please just pop it in the chat box and I will provide some clarity. I'm just going to switch off my video so we have some sort of bandwidth. So Carol did a very good job introducing me and my background, talking about, I was a project and process management consultant, mostly for banks and insurance companies. And I did that up until 2014. So from about 2013 to 2014. And then I had a side hustle called Nishwe. And Nishwe happened while I was working for these large businesses. Though my mom tends to remind me that I always need to mention that my first real dabble in business was in high school when I used to braid white girls' hair. And people always laugh when I tell them it was white girls' hair. It was exclusively white girls' hair. I lived in a suburb where I was the only black girl for miles. And I was the only black girl they knew that could braid hair. So I kept it niche to just the white girls, and that's how I made my business in high school. But couple of years later, when I decided, oh, and then around 2010, actually, I decided that I needed a change in my world. And I took a sabbatical where I went off to China for a year. And that's when I really realized that we are in desperate need for small businesses to exist in South Africa and the world over, really. But small business owners were so consumed by the entrapment of wanting to be in an office and having to work all the time and not actually being able to enjoy being a business owner. So I was also looking at the time, studying the future of work. So automating business processes came naturally for me because that was my background and it was something that I was fascinated by. So it just made sense for me to start this business. I didn't look for something because people ask, why would you start this particular business and not something different? 2018, I did some business with Rick Ed. We had the Creative Enterprises Hub. We kept that very shortly. I think at the time, I mean, at least in my perspective, I don't think we put in as much work as was needed for us to grow the creative enterprises the way we wanted to. So we were focusing specifically on developing creative business owners. And then in 2018, I also joined a company called Entrepreneurdy as a partner, which is a digital platform that allows you to translate your idea into a business model. It's all online and we could connect you to business advisors and stuff. But when COVID happened last year, or rather during the lockdowns last year, one of my business partners passed on from COVID. And in the middle of trying to figure out how our business is going to carry on post the death, and death is one of the things that our businesses need to cater for. I mean, can you imagine something as horrible as if you were to pass on as the business owner? Do you still have a business or not? And part of my talk today will be how to cater for those things. But while we were trying to figure this out, I found out that my other business partner in the same business had screwed me over. And that for me was a huge learning because it's about trust and how to build together. But it was at the same time a blessing because I had to then reevaluate what I wanted to do going forward as a business. Do I still want to be in multiple businesses or do I just want to keep the one? So that's just me in a bit short. I'm very much an IT geek. If I do speak too much IT, please let me know and I will put it in English, like people tell me. So I think COVID has been a real shock for us. And I would like to find out from each of you, how is business going for you right now? Are you creating something new? Are you growing and scaling an existing business? Are you creating something new? Are you growing and scaling an existing business? 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 Are you growing So where are you? I saw earlier some people had said they've just started their business. I would just like to get a sense of where most of us are at. And most of us have really heard the saying before, right? When life gives you lemons, we're told to make lemonade out of it. However, or rather fortunately, we live in an era where the opportunities and the possibilities for even lemons are endless. So we can really make teas out of this thing, make juice out of it. And my point here is, don't be stuck on creating just a singular solution. Explore all possible solutions when you're feeling stuck. This is something that I thought I should share with you. This is based on some US research that was done. Unfortunately, I couldn't find information that was specific to South Africa. But just from my experiences and my engagements with different communities that are growing entrepreneurs or assisting small business owners in particular, I would say we are pretty much in the same manner. It shows how different businesses responded, and I want you to just take a look at where you would fit in. And it really is, and I want to highlight that it is possible to move from one status to the next status, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So by the end of this, I'm hoping that I will have given you real proper tips to have done it. So in the first mode, you can see that a lot of people, some of the companies went into financial mode. Let's just maintain the status quo, keep tight controls on our finances in order to stay in business. And then in mode 2, it shows you that some businesses focused on protecting their workers and their customers in order to get them back in. And we saw that a lot in the hospitality industry. You know, first point is, let me make sure people can come back and they feel safe to come back. Then in the third mode, which is what we'll focus on quite a lot today, is those that have been already innovative types of businesses that were already looking towards the future. They could rely on their own data in order to formulate a game plan to survive. It was easy for them to educate their teams and support their teams and family members to adapt. And then in the last category, what you see is mostly the tech-driven companies that could leap almost immediately into survival mode or into thriving mode. They'd planned for the future of work, planning for smart cities, and the real challenge pre-COVID was really market access. But now what we're seeing is that we're seeing a boom in how these businesses are doing, mainly because they were that much more data driven and could be that much more resilient in the end. And an example of this is something like Zoom. I mean, before COVID, most of us didn't even know Zoom or engage with Zoom. And now most of us don't even talk about making a phone calls. We're just saying, listen, I'll send you a Zoom link, right? And so this is also something that we need to be aware of as our patterns and behaviors are changing. So one of the key steps to building a business for resilience is the ability for you to reframe the setbacks that you experience as opportunities. And this is something that, so I facilitate for a company called Africa Management Institute, and we speak about this quite a lot. It is about the 3 pillars of resilience, and they are personalization, permanence, and pervasiveness. And I want you to think about something that you're not good at, right? If you're not good at something and you just have told yourself that you're not even going to try it out, you have potentially given up all hope of even getting it right. And this for me speaks to the core of these pillars of resilience, right? To some degree, you may have accepted that this is a permanent handicap. You've let something happen in the past and it has defined this handicap for you. And even given that opportunity, you'd rather not try because you feel you could embarrass yourself and you'd rather avoid that. But since you're not investing in changing that handicap, it will remain a handicap, right? So as we speak about this, think about how you can even look at your own handicap and see how you can reframe that and see the possibility to change it from being a handicap to being something that doesn't fear you at all. So in the first of the pillars, it's don't take things personally, right? It's some things are outside of our control. It may be somebody else's fault. Somebody else may be having a bad day. So when something happens, something bad happens to you, do not dwell on taking it personally. Focus on what your role is in that particular situation and what you can do to actually try and resolve it. Sometimes that means accepting that you can't resolve it, but you can move on from it. The second pillar speaks about how things are not permanent. Eventually, even this stressful experience that we're having with COVID and all of these lockdowns, this stuff we can get over it. It will move on. You just have to see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It is not completely permanent, so don't dwell too much on those things. And those who are optimistic and therefore a little bit more resilient will see the effects of a bad event as just temporary as opposed to being long lasting, right? The last pillar speaks about pervasiveness, right? So don't let that particular setback or unrelated areas of your life define everything about your life. So instead of saying, I'm not good at something, I mean, so there's a difference between saying, I'm not good at something versus I'm not good at anything. So, and I think here what's important is to really listen to how you're speaking to yourself, particularly when you experience setback, because those kind of things almost, I think like what the doctor was saying, you know, what you're going to nurture will grow. So if you're going to keep pouring into feeding that negativity, that's the negativity that will grow. It will just keep, and that's where things become a handicap for us. So if you are going to do this for your business, so if these pillars, how would you translate these pillars into your business? Because I want to focus on the business element of things and not so much on the personal. But how do you take a personal, a human character trait and build it into the business? And I think what most of us can agree that we don't like admin. Most of us as business owners is probably the passion killer. I think the only people I've met that like admin are virtual assistants and personal assistants. But in general, most people just don't like the admin. But by virtue of being a business owner or being self-employed, there's actually tons of admin. Adelina says admin is the worst. Yes, it is the worst. But it's actually a very important part of doing this business, right? When you're doing this admin, how much of this data that you're collecting about your business are you using to actually ensure that this business is an asset? Or are you doing this admin just because you've been told that a business owner has just got admin? This is the sort of data that we use when we need to create a recovery plan for a business and give it the ability to bounce back. And a lot of the times when you're working with a small business that doesn't have the data, even seeing change and real growth is a lot hard, right? So if you're not doing that admin, it just means that it's going to make it that much longer for me to come and do the formulate a strategy for your business. And that's just the way that it is. And our admin in just simple categories is around the stuff that we do around planning and tracking and reviewing our progress. So Melissa, I'll answer what the data is and how we're actually going to collect it. But okay, so we've got the strategy part, which is all the stuff that we do with planning. And I see we're great at doing goals, but we're not so great at actually tracking how close we are to our goals. And we're not quite specific even with our goals. I mean, earlier when Caroline was talking about the money element, I was wondering, do people even know how much money they need? If you say you want to make lots of money, how much money is that? And put that definition in place. And as a real actual goal to say, I want to make $1 million by September 2021. And then track that activity against that plan. Then it's around understanding our customers' needs. We're very good at marketing and talking about our products and services to our customers, but we're not very good at engaging and getting that feedback from our customers that we then use to improve the product or service. And if you're even doubtful, I could ask you, when last did you do a survey of your customers? In this particular era, Right now in this crisis, do you even know why your customers are not coming back, or are you making assumptions? In the context of tracking and planning the flow of your money, we love it when the money comes in. We are excited to do the invoice, but we're not actually tracking whether we've got enough money to survive. We don't even know what enough money to survive as a business owner even looks like. So we need to be more intentful about the tracking and the planning around that. And I really will, the next slide really does speak to exactly what all of these admin entails. The next one would be around the managing of teams and productivity. A lot of the times I hear business owners say, I want to hire the right person. What does that even mean, to hire the right person? Who is the right person? Are you basing it on skills? And then you give the person the right skills, but they actually don't have the right attitude. How do you build that into your business, especially now when you want to build resilience into your business, getting the right attitude? And I'll speak about that quite briefly. And then it is around managing the business operations. I suspect I'm going to run out of time. So if I get kicked out, please bear with me. But so this is pretty much what the admin looks like. And Melissa, to speak to your question about what is the data, this is the data. All of these little activities that you do, it collects data for you. So you can imagine, as you're doing an invoice, you know how much money you're expecting to come in. That is data. When you're doing work as a team and you're going to calculate how quickly do we put together this product from beginning to end, that is the kind of data you want to be aware of. So all of these activities, we do them, and you might not be doing all of them. And I accept we might not be doing them. Most of us do the admin that we think is the most important, because really it is quite overwhelming to try and keep up with all of these things. But what's going to be key for you is actually understanding where your gaps are and how you can actually keep closing those particular gaps. And one way to do that quite easily is to do a business review. So I've just shared here a link in the group where you can do a business review, and that's really just for you to understand what sort of practices should I be doing in the business, how often should I be doing them, and then if you see any of those gaps, then you can start putting plans in place to start addressing those gaps. How do we get this this data, you might be asking me or asking yourself, right? So we use a lot of digital tools. If you look just on your phone and on your laptop or whatever it is that you're using to do your work, chances are you have an app for just about every one of these. You've got an app that you're using. You definitely have an app for your social media. You're using Zoom to do your meetings. Take note of all of these apps. This is what we call a tech stack, right? So when you then look at all of these apps, start taking note of all of the technology, the text that the apps that you're using, but also look into the analytics of all of these apps. Now, that's the reporting. That reporting will give you so much insights. So for example, if you are using an app for even, let's say, social media, because that's quite a popular one. If you go into your social media analytics tabs, you will be able to see how people are engaging with you. From that engagement, how much of it leads to people going onto your website and buying from you. That is the data that you need to then say, what do I do to shift my marketing in order to improve my sales targets? I always advise entrepreneurs to make that website work for you, right? So if you're a one woman show, one man show, you're all alone in the business and you're thinking, how do I keep up with this admin? The easiest way to do it is actually what we call integrating. That means connecting your website to these apps so that a lot of the activities can happen, but you also have a single place for that reporting. So instead of now looking at 10 different apps to get your reporting, if all of these apps are integrated onto your website, you can actually just get a report that shows you, just look at one report, the Google Analytics one is quite popular, to look at where all of this activity is coming from and how you can use it to grow your business. This is what we call metadata, right? And the metadata is something that is thought of to be just for the geeks, but in reality, it is for everyone that is a business owner. If I were to ask you something like how many social media followers you have and what is your engagement rate, how many of you would actually have an answer knowingly? So to say, I have 1,500 followers, and those 1,500 followers, 20% of them actually engage, and engaging meaning beyond just the like. They are reading it, they are clicking on the links that you're providing them, they're providing comments, they're providing some sort of feedback to you. At best, you might know the number of followers, but not have a clue as to the percentage of engagement when it comes to your content. All your digital tools will make use of, give you some information around the marketing, how you engage with either the customer or even internally as a team. It will give you information about transactions, and those transactions is not necessarily just reserved for people with an e-commerce site. That transaction could be just, clicking a link and going to download a tool. That is considered a transaction as well. But also from an administration point of view, you can calculate how quickly it takes to get the job done, or how long it takes to get the job done. You can see if people, especially now when we're working remotely, you can see whether people are productive or not being productive. And then you can actually go engage with your team members to see what is missing in their world. And this is just an example of what a dashboard would look like. This is typically what would look like from a sales app. But I just want to highlight a few things, right? So one, I want to highlight that your product list is your inventory. So you can imagine if you're doing it online, you don't have to go into the storeroom anymore and physically count products, except if you're going to just verify the information that you see on your dashboards. You are able to track customer orders and services and delivery just from there. And just by setting it up to give you that kind of reporting, you can calculate things like, are we really good with our deliveries? Do we deliver on time? Do we deliver? How long does it actually take us? Do we do a 3 to 5 day delivery? Could we improve it and make it a 2-day delivery? And what would it take? The next thing that it highlights is stuff like trends. It's so important to know when you have a good season and when you have a bad season, and when you anticipate that. Somebody was asking me in December and January, why don't I do a lot of workshops around that time? And I said, I've learned over the years that between December and January, actually entrepreneurs are not thinking about learning new skills for their business. They actually just want to take a time out. So I expect my revenues to be low between December and January just for certain services, but I can only see it if I'm looking and tracking those kind of trends. And then this one is a nice feature to also have, where you are encouraging your teams. So, a shout out when there's a sale that has been made, or one of your salespeople has closed the deal. Those kind of things are encouraging. And we've noticed that it actually improves productivity when you acknowledge people. And it's harder to acknowledge them when they're working remotely. But if the system is set up to just say, sorry, Rick, I'll be finished just now. I'm 5 minutes over. I'll be finished just now. But so those kind of things encourage the teams. And when we're working remotely, it's nice to feel acknowledged, even if the person is not in front of you. Just as a warning though, right? Whatever practice you do adopt, please be consistent. Aim for that consistency. And just because you have a setback on one day, just remember, reframe it. It's an opportunity to, today didn't work out so well, but tomorrow will be working out that much better. Then it's key to also make it matter. So define the success. So if I am doing A, it will enable me to do B so that we can get this kind of impact. And the example I use there is, again, with social media. If I look at my social media analytics, it enables us to understand how many of our social media followers end up on our website, right? So you can put that against your actual sales targets. Sorry, and just one thing to mention is that all of these practices that we do, they have an impact. So something like looking at social media analytics, yes, it affects your business. It's going to affect what your team needs to do in order to get that practice right in the business. But that is information that you can take and then use it with your investors when you're now looking for funding. It is information that you can use when you then engage with the communities at large. And if you're thinking, well, it's all good and well if I don't have a team, but what happens when you do have a team, right? When you do have a team, you have to create, and it's not just a team that with people that you hire. Even within your network, when you appeal to people to work with you, you need to have at least these 4 things in order to get their buy-in. Give people a sense of purpose, make it meaningful for the person to actually want to do this task. So this admin, it's not gonna just take care of itself. In order for you to do well, you actually have to give it a sense of purpose into your world. And I'm just going to do this to be quick because Rick is shouting at me. But you're going to the last part. I promise I'll be finished in 2 minutes, Rick. Then you also give people a sense of autonomy. There's no point in asking people to work with you, but you're going to be over controlling and micromanaging these people. Let them do the work the way they best know how to. Give guidance also as to how the work needs to be done. If you've got particular standards that need to be met, just so people are aware of the expectations. Give people an opportunity to be masters at the work that they do. So give them the tools and the support that they need to become specialists in that field, right? So if you're asking people to do a job, but you're not giving them the resources, it then falls apart. Also make it relatable to that person. Give them a sense of community, make them part of the greater good. So if you're working with people and they feel isolated from the actual project, they're not going to be giving off their best and being productive into that project. The desired outcome out of this is for you to be a resilient business owner. You need to have means and use that data to reimagine your customer engagement. You can use all of that data to reshape the culture of the organization. So you can imagine when all of these practices are done well, then it means you truly have a more resilient business. Look at how you are engaging with your workforce. How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them interested in it? How do you, when you do your planning, are you planning alone or with them? And I always advise plan with your team and not away from your team. And you will notice that over time, even you as a leader, you start to grow and it starts to shape you and even your mindset about the stresses and the struggles that you're going through. I'm going to keep this up here just to say, this is how you get things done. Know your gaps, document your processes, automate them, create a routine so that things become autopilot, prioritize all the work that you need to do. Don't let unnecessary things occur in your life. So learn to say no. And sometimes that saying no means saying no to customers, even when they're being just too difficult to work with. You might need to just say, you know what, I'm letting you go because you're not the right type of customer. You're frustrating my business. And then leverage existing resources to create all of your small wins. I do promise none of this is going to be easy, but the results of doing something like this into your business are very worth it. You will become better at it, growing your team and investors. Carol, Rick, I do apologize for going over time, but I'm finished now.